Yeah, I want to. Where is the link? This is the link.
Yeah. You should also be able to get the link.
I wanted to send it on WhatsApp.
So anyone can go to the channel and watch it.
Yeah.
There's a different way to get it.
No.
Did it go away, that
No,
window?
no, I think it's there.
And then over here, we go to the post. No, down here.
Let's email.
Yeah. Just send it to just
Gmail. M.
okay. And then I can post it on WhatsApp group.
Okay. Let me see if I can.
Yeah.
Would that mean they have to join?
No.
We'll start very soon. Just give us some technical buffer time.
I'm also, so
Yeah.
we can do it. You're on the event. Oh, that's nice. So that's fine.
Okay. Yeah. Anyone is. No, we are also sending it to the group.
Are they still viewing it through the event page?
No, one is through YouTube and one. Yeah, we can. Which one?
The one I sent was with the right link.
Is Saki coming?
Are you able to?
Oh, yeah. Y'all are waiting for me. I just did.
No, I'm just asking.
Oh, yeah.
But you would have to hold it, right? You would have to hold the phone all the while. Okay. I got it, Amrita.
You done to do dinner after? This is true. We'll see. Open to ideas.
Why would you do that?
Come on. I thought you said
Now you're thinking out.
Oh, no.
Can't believe it. My face in there.
Show you.
So I must have it. I don't.
Huh?
I like how
The
that
Facebook?
Yeah, I was so prepared. Before today.
I think they're
In fact,
already.
I had them even before.
Is it working?
No, I didn't.
Is it working?
Oh, yeah, no, all I have to hit is start live video and then it'll
Okay.
do the
Okay.
thing.
Can I just take it?
Yeah, for sure. You want me to like try?
If you go to the event on Facebook, Somnath, you'll see it there.
Yeah, no, I'm just. Okay.
So it's saying it's. And now it's live.
Okay.
It's showing there. No.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see it on the page.
Okay, Shristi will message and then my phone will die. Or just message Shristi by yourself. Say if this phone is dying.
Say hello. Yes.
Your flash came on.
Yeah, this is good if you have a, all of this.
Yeah.
Hello. Yes. Your flash. You can turn it off on the screen.
Put it off.
Mm-hmm.
There's one person.
It's probably so Matt sitting right next to you.
I'm trying to watch it. Can multiple people go live from the?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That'd be a lot of videos on the same event, for sure.
I'll watch one of them with my phone.
But just so that we have your number.
So it'll be like Inception theme, but
The more people watch it.
MIT is making people like this right now.
yeah, right, okay. What's the page? It's just
No,
keep
like
going.
beyond. No, there you go. There you go. It's on the events. Down. Hiya. How are you? Oh, I know. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Totally not my fault.
So I'm not gonna hit this, right?
No.
This should theoretically be somewhere in
Oh
here.
no, this is the other one. This is Camille's one.
Okay.
So it's a different event.
Okay.
There are two events of the same. The one which has like the most one.
That's the one I'm on. It's the one with the most. It's the one with the most. It's the 124. Oh yeah. So this says 124 people, right? Is it perhaps being streamed to the other one?
Not into discussion.
That's where I was. Yes, let me go. Okay, which one of these three is it?
Yeah, there's a. More for the sound. I think. Okay.
Do you know which of the events you're broadcasting into? There's like a couple of them with the same name, so I'm just trying to remember.
Like beyond binary. It's not.
It's like one of these three events called Life Beyond Binary.
Oh.
Are you on the right event? No.
Oh, okay, it is that one. Okay.
Are you on the right event? Yeah, because if you're.
See discussion.
Here, let me.
Do you have a plan for your
Shimi, you got a charger? Shristi, you have a charger?
Yeah.
Just need to convert it. Oh, okay. I don't know why it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I just deleted it right now. It was just testing.
That explains a lot. Okay. Cool.
Oh, it doesn't like ask, but like, yeah, so we're folks watching, let's share it.
Oh,
So.
wait, how did that?
Sorry,
No, I was never
That's launching.
Okay.
I was asking people for a charger.
Yeah. Because like I was thinking at one section, like, well, yeah.
Are you just collecting them and you're gonna read them off? Or
No. That's the question that I would ask.
Oh, okay.
Spoken for sure.
We're really running out of days behind.
Hey.
Hey. Because it's first time.
Right. Kella? You can put it on the table. Hey Rakesh,
Yeah.
she's gonna give some pamphlets to put on there. Just put them. Are we waiting for Mona?
No, Mona.
Are we waiting for anyone else? Right?
Saket, I thought was going to come.
I'm telling you. Right. So sorry.
So we can, I can put some aid brochures also maybe. Maybe we can start now.
Yeah?
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm done. Do you want me to open it? Do you want me to open it? Yeah, I can open it.
Yeah.
Are you?
So we'll just go to the organization thing and move on to the.
Yeah. All right, so hey everybody, welcome to this panel that came together. It's an event that's hosted by AID Boston. Some of y'all are, how many of y'all have come to an AID Boston event before? Awesome, so I think it's really great that we've got like a bunch of new people too. We're gonna go around and introduce the organizations that we're with. I think this time around we were really lucky to have a bunch of Boston-based organizations, South Asian organizations, kind of put this event together. So we'd like to start with AID Boston, and I think Amrita is gonna tell you a bit about what they do.
Yeah. So Association for India's Development is a US-based nonprofit. There are several groups or chapters, as we call them, across the US. We have about 35 to 40 chapters that work independently, and we're kind of a solidarity organization where we're always working to understand issues, and we believe that issues have interconnected solutions. And and we work with several partners across India, across various issues, and one of the partners we work with is Shuni Das, and she will be talking about it. But our goal is to, through our support, to understand these issues and be more in support of the various important campaigns that are going on across India and across the world.
Awesome, thanks, Amrita. Kandil, do you want to talk about your organization?
Sure, I'll pass it on to my colleague, Aisha, co-founder.
Yay.
So Muslims for Progressive Values, it was established in 2007, but we're pretty new in Boston. This is our first year. So we're a group of progressive Muslims. The three main issues that our organization focuses on is equal gender rights and feminism throughout the Muslim community, interfaith couples, and of course LGBTQ rights. So, but overall, we really focus on diversity and pluralism and making the community more open.
Awesome, thank you. Kamal, do you want to talk about Masala?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Kamal Tifani from Masala, which is a organization for queer South Asians in the Boston and Greater Massachusetts area. We've been around for about 24 years, creating space for queer South Asians. We've sort of, my husband and I took this over in the last 4 or 5 years, and we have, we do monthly events that are sort of potlucks and social support and social community based. And we do 2 or 3 larger events per year that can attract about 150 to 200 people. And today's event we have been able to sponsor with the help of NCAPIA, which is the National Queer Alliance for Pacific and Asian Islanders, and also Kanequa Hinds from Fenway Health, offered us the money to be able to sponsor and compensate our speakers today. So I wanted to thank those two groups. And also, if you guys are looking for more information or would like to sort of come to our events and be part of the community, I or Saket can help add you to the Facebook group and the WhatsApp group. Just thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. John, would you like to introduce something right over here?
Sure. So I'm a staff person at Asian American Resource Workshop, which is a Pan-Asian organization based in Dorchester, in primarily Vietnamese community in Dorchester, Hills Corner. And we do a lot of social engagement work, specifically in leadership development, and thinking about broad campaigns that attract and impact Asian American folks. Also to be thinking about how to be in solidarity across campaigns, so doing broader base building, thinking about what campaign work both impacts Asian American folks and the folks that we want to be in solidarity with across racial and class lines. And another part of the work that we do is political education, thinking about how to build political power through education that is non-hierarchical and is in service of liberatory frameworks. So a lot of that, and the thing that I do want to bring up is that the organization has definitely grown to be able to hold what we say is Pan-Asian. So we definitely have more South Asian people engaged in the programming, but it's not a South Asian organization.
Awesome, thanks for that. Yeah. I'll introduce CUSAC, which is the Queer South Asian Collective. We're pretty new. We're Greater Boston area based. We're very trans and femme identities centered in the work that we do and in the way we go about organizing. We don't really have an agenda just yet. Most of it is just like putting together events that cater to folks who are not primarily cis gay men. It's been fun so far. I think that we're still learning. There's a whole bunch of new young organizers who are getting their feet wet as a part of CUSAC leadership. And that's been really exciting to be a part of. Yeah, and we've got a Facebook page. It's basically facebook.com/Queer South Asian Collective, the entire word. And if you're queer and South Asian identified and want to be part of like a smaller group where we actually do interact with each other in real time, let me know and I can add you up to the group. That's about like all of our, so also we have folks who do other projects, and also Shumi works with another organization in West Bengal. So she's also going to introduce her organization while she does introductions. But before that, just to tell you what we're going to do, right? Everybody's going to introduce themselves, right? Because who knows yourself best than you? And then we're going to basically talk to each other about like the different challenges that we've seen, different experiences that we've had with the work that we do at the intersection of all of our identities. Does that feel good to everyone? You guys? Yeah? Yeah. All right, so I'll go introduce both of you.
Hi, hello. আমি সুমি দাস। সুমি, আমি ইন্ডিয়া ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গল থেকে এসেছি এবং আমার কোচবিহারে থাকি এবং আসলে অনেকটা ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গল বলতে সবাই কলকাতা বোঝে এবং কলকাতার নাম মাথায় আসে, কিন্তু আমি কলকাতা থেকে অনেকটা দূরে থাকি এবং আমার বাংলাদেশ বর্ডার সংলগ্ন অঞ্চল। আমি 2009 থেকে একটি সংগঠনের সাথে যুক্ত, মৈত্রী সংযোগ সোসাইটি আমাদের সংগঠনের নাম, এবং আমাদের মূল লক্ষ্য হলো যে আমাদের বন্ধুরা যারা হিডেন পপুলেশন আছে এবং যারা কাম আউট হয়েছেন, তাদের বিকল্প লাইভলিহুড কি হতে পারে, তারা কিভাবে বেঁচে থাকবেন এবং তারা কি তাদের স্ট্রাগল, এটা আমাদের কাজের মূল্য।
My name is Sumi Das. I come from Kuch Bihar in West Bengal. Most people understand Calcutta to be West Bengal, but that is not the case. This is a small town in northern Bengal, and that's where I come from. And I co-founded, or we founded an organization called Moitri Sanjog in 2009. And our main aim is to work with the hidden population and also the population that has come out to work on their livelihoods and their everyday struggles.
আমার তো আমার জীবন মানে শুরু হয় এবং একা থাকার জীবন শুরু হয় অনেক ছোটবেলায়। আমি যখন আমি ক্লাস 8 কি 7-8 পড়ি, আমি বাড়ি থেকে বেরিয়ে যাই। আমার বাড়ি খুব উচ্চবিত্ত, খুব কনজারভেটিভ বাড়ির সন্তান আমি, তো তাদের মধ্যে ছেলে সন্তান। আমার মনে হচ্ছিল যে এটা আমার জন্য ঠিক নয়, তার কারণ পরবর্তী সময় মনে হয়েছিল প্রপার্টি ইস্যুস আমাদের জন্য খুব বড় একটা আন্দোলনের কারণ হতে পারে। দেখা গেছে যে অনেক সময় আমাদের মতো মানুষজনদের সম্পত্তির থেকে বঞ্চিত করা হচ্ছে। তো আমার আন্দোলন শুরু হয় সেই 14 বছর থেকে। আমার কাছে কোনো অপশন ছিল না এবং আমি শিলিগুড়িতে পালিয়ে যাই বাড়ি থেকে এবং আমার সেক্স ওয়ার্ক দিয়ে জীবন শুরু হয় এবং তারপরে আমি এনজিওর সাথে যুক্ত হই এবং সেই এনজিওতে আমার সেই সময় 2006-এ আমার স্যালারি ছিল 2000-2500 টাকার মতো। সেই জায়গা থেকে আমার সেখানে অনেকদিন ছিলাম সেই এনজিওতে এবং তারপর আমার মনে হয়েছিল যে জায়গাতে আমার জন্ম এবং যেখানে আমি বড় হয়ে উঠেছি সেখানকার আমার মতো মানুষজনের কি অবস্থা। তার কারণ যে এক নাম্বার আমাদের কোনো বন্ধু হয় না, স্কুলে কলেজে কোনো রকম বন্ধু হয় না, কারণ ছেলেরাও খুব ভালোভাবে নেয় না এবং মেয়েরাও হাসে। তো এটা একটা সব থেকে বড় সমস্যা। সেই তাগিদ থেকে আমি 2009-তে কোচবিহারে ফিরি এবং ফেরার পর আমার একটি মাত্র উদ্দেশ্য ছিল যে কি হতে পারি, মানে আমাদের জন্য একটি কথা বলার জায়গা এবং শেল্টার কিভাবে আমরা করতে পারি, সেই উদ্যোগ থেকে আমাদের কাজ শুরু।
So I started living alone at the age of 7 or 8 years. That is when I had to leave home. I come from a very conservative family, and to my family, I was their boy child. Property issues are a big struggle for people like us. From the age of 14 years, at the age of 14 years is when I left home. I had no option, and I went to Shiliguri, which is another close by town in North Bengal, and started my life by sex work. In 2006, I worked in an NGO and got a salary of rupees 2,500. At that time, I started thinking that I needed to go back to the place where I was born, and I grew up till that age. So I went back to Kuch Bihar to work with people like me. Our lives are very lonely, and that is because we are not accepted either by the male population or by the female population, and it is to work with them that I started on Multi Sanjog in 2009.
All right. Janvi, would you like to?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Janvi. I use they, them pronouns. I am a non-binary, queer, South Indian immigrant, caste privileged. I grew up. Can I just finish that sentence? Cool. Yeah, and then I'll stop and then translate. And come from a caste privileged Tamil Brahmin family. And I moved to the United States when I was 6 years old. So I have like a green card, which I'm realizing I just crossed the border yesterday, on Monday, across Toronto. I was visiting a friend in Toronto, and I realized how much anxiety I had crossing the border back into the United States, waiting for, because in the past, I literally had to sit there for 20 minutes explaining why I was leaving the country. And I am now just with everything that's happening in the country right now, I'm realizing that we're carrying like a lot of anxiety, right? Like immigrant folks are carrying a lot of anxiety and showing up in my body. And so the work that I do is sort of connecting how trauma manifests in our bodies, how can we talk about that, and then how do we actually connect that to organizing work. The work that I'm doing now is really new to me. I started after college working in corporate America and realized that that was not my place. That wasn't where I was going to flourish and grow as a person. And so been doing this work around, specifically around racial equity, embodiment work, and trauma-informed practices only for the past 3-4 years. So really new to this work, and really new to being like an out trans queer person too. So I'll just leave it at that, that I'm really interested in unpacking also like what does it mean to be sharing our stories, which are full of trauma, and to whose consumption. But I wanted to introduce myself with like a very short, this is where I'm coming from. And I also want to say that as a caste privileged person, I have a lot of learning to do on how much space I take up in this, on panels and things like that.
Hello, my name is Benji Bombay. It's a stage name or a performer name. So what I do is I work primarily as a performance artist through both drag and also through burlesque, which is a form of dance which typically involves kind of more risque stuff. So stripping, but also, bumping, grinding, dancing, revealing one's body. And while those are all really fun and seemingly lighthearted things to do, I think that they can also be used as a way to tell stories and to empower people who aren't normally empowered. So performance is one way that I like to participate in and practice my identity and express it to people. And the other way I do is through writing. So I also write for a radio show, and I'm also, so I just finished writing for one, and I'm launching one later this fall that we can talk about during the upcoming project section. But for the most part, I just wanted to say I'm very grateful to be here and to have to be introduced to this community, because I've been living in Rhode Island most of my life, and then Boston. And even then, I just haven't had very many face or South Asian people in my life. So I'm very grateful to be here.
Awesome, thank you. So my name is Afia. I'm an asylee in the US. I've been an asylee here for about 4 years now. I have been doing community organizing, community building work for the last, I think now it's gone over 12 years. I'm from Pune, which is in Maharashtra in India, where I started out really small hosting events and hosting parties for like folks to come together and socialize. And very early on, I learned about like the impact of what socializing or social events can do for a queer community in a small city. Along with that came, the harassment and like the negative stuff. And I went through that for about 6 years. I was stalked and harassed and threatened, after which I came here and then sought asylum. I also applied for asylum as a bisexual asylum seeker against the advice of my lawyers and the organization that was helping me, because there's this assumption that if you're bisexual, then you can hide your queer identity, right, and pass as someone who is straight. But I decided, I'm like, if I'm applying for asylum, if I'm going to give up my right to live in my home country, I might as well just do it and speak my full truth. I think I was fortunate to get asylum as a bisexual asylum seeker. And ever since then, my work has been, I do a lot of like one-on-one counseling sessions with asylum seekers who are from India. There are folks who are gay identified, trans identified, bisexual identified, queer folks, and it's all about like being able to, for me, I've been able to have the privilege of like helping folks tell their stories in order for them to find safety in a country that doesn't really belong to them. So storytelling is really important to me. There's a lot of power in that, and that's why I'm kind of really excited to be with folks who have very different backgrounds and like different stories and experiences. And I know that even though we're so different, I hope to find some kind of like place where I feel like I fit in and belong up here with y'all. Yeah, that's a bit about me. So I also put it out to like post about talking about, we wanted to ask each other questions, right? Because of our different experiences, we don't really find ourselves in the same situations, or maybe we do, and we'd probably be busy doing other stuff in at events that we all end up going to, and we don't really get to talk to each other, right? So as someone who really didn't want to come up with a list of questions today, I asked my peers to come up with questions, and I'm going to be like, whoever has a question that we want to ask and start with, we can do that. I feel like Johnny has really
I do have a question. I have a question that I think is like broad enough, but also a really good opening question. And it's the question that you asked in one of the emails that we sent, which is like, the question was, what is it like to be queer and trans and alive right now?
Mm-hmm. All right, that's the question.
And I really like that one because it's loaded.
For trans and alive. All right, who wants to go first? Okay.
Okay, I'll go. Sure, I'll go. So I think for me, I have to kind of break it down word by word. So, queer means something very different to me than it does for different people. For some people, queerness means social deviance. For some people, it means, diverging from gender norms. And for some people, it's about their attraction to other people. And for some people, it's a combination of those things. Personally, I think the word queer encompasses a much larger sensibility and range of experiences than just that. So I think languages can be queer. I think institutions can be queer. So I would say for me, what it's like to be a queer person, I think that also means somebody who struggles with a lot of insecurities and mental health, particularly, and feelings of isolation that really characterize queerness for me. As a trans person, so I identify as non-binary, which means not within the binary of identifying solely as male or female. And then, what was it, surviving was the last word? Mm-hmm. Or alive?
Alive.
Oh, alive, sure.
Surviving.
Oh, sorry, because the title of the event is survival. And alive is something that I think it's like the hardest thing that I'm still trying to define for myself when I feel alive and when I want to participate in the world, and when most of the time I don't, to be very truthful. So it's kind of really fighting down that impulse all the time. But that being said, I recognize that, I still have a lot of privileges as far as, I think being in an MIT building, I obviously have a class privilege to be here. I left Bangladesh where I was born when I was 3 years old. And I don't experience I didn't really experience casteism growing up. I didn't experience, anti-Blackness, which exists in our community as well, or colorism to the extent that other people in our community experience it. So that's why I'm super interested in hearing what the other people on the panel have to say. So I don't have to talk anymore.
All right, who wants to go next?
Actually, আমি যেই জায়গা থেকে এসেছি ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গল, তো সেখানে খেয়ে পড়ে বেঁচে থাকাটাই মূল কথা। সেখানে কুয়ার ট্রান্স এই মানেগুলো ভীষণ ফেক তাদের কাছে পৌঁছার খুব একটা সময় নেই এই ইস্যুগুলো নিয়ে। এবং সেখানে একটি নামেই সবাই জানে, যারা চুল বড় বা যারা শাড়ি পরে সেই মানুষগুলোকে হিজড়ে জনগোষ্ঠী হিসেবে জানে। সেখানে তো কুয়ার শব্দটা ভীষণ নতুন এবং ট্রান্স শব্দটাও কেউ জানে না। আমি সেই জায়গা থেকে এসেছি। আমার মনে হয় যে এই শব্দগুলোতে নিয়ে আলোচনা অবশ্যই দরকার আছে, এবং তার থেকেও আমার আন্দোলনের একটি অন্য দিকও আছে। যখন আমার মনে হয়েছে যে এই আন্দোলনটাকে অনেক সময় সেক্সুয়ালিটি হিসেবে দেখা হয় যে যেমন প্রাইড মান্থ, এটা প্রচুর বড় বড় শহরে প্রাইড হচ্ছে, কর্পোরেট ফান্ড আসছে এবং সেখানে সূক্ষ্ম একটা লিঙ্ক আপের চেষ্টা হচ্ছে। দেখা যাচ্ছে যে সেটা হয়তো অনেক ক্ষেত্রে সফল হচ্ছে বা হবেও। এই কমিউনিটিটা শুধুমাত্র সেক্সুয়ালিটির দিকে ঘেঁষে দিলে হবে না, এখানেও আছে কাস্ট এবং বর্ণ বৈষম্য ভীষণভাবে, যেটা এখন অব্দি আমি যে জায়গাতে বড় হয়েছি বা আমি যে স্টেটে থাকি সেখানে তো ভীষণভাবে সত্যি।
Yeah, so where I come from, being alive itself is a struggle. Queer and trans are not something people there worry about too much. Staying alive is what they are thinking about all the time. In that society, there is only one name people identify us. Those who have long hair and those who wear a sari, we are all called hijras. So queer and trans are very new terminologies to us, but definitely there needs to be a discussion around that. There is another dimension that I would like to bring up, that this movement is often just identified with sexuality. Like we see Pride months and Pride parades happening in metropolitan cities, and there is also oftentimes a lot of corporate fund that comes in. But that is not the only thing that this movement should be identified with. There are dimensions of caste and race that define this movement.
To be alive in a queer and trans South Indian body is kind of wild. And because it actually doesn't go against anything, but it goes against everything. So I think about the impact, like I've been trying to think about the impact of casteism on the ways that gender roles have taken place in my family, and Brahmanism and the ways in which religion sort of mandates certain gender roles. I've been trying to unpack that. And I think for me, a lot of what it means to define being alive right now is in relationship to other people. And a lot of what transphobia and homophobia does is disconnect us from those relationships, right? And so being alive is really fleeting depending on who is willing to see your humanity and who's not. On a daily basis, people negotiate my gender. On a daily basis, I have to negotiate my gender. On a daily basis, I have to negotiate the way that I appear to people. And whether people feel safe around me or not, right? That is projected onto me when actually I feel unsafe. And so it's this constant negotiation and struggle that I am unable to communicate with my family, even though they are supportive of me as a person. They are not understanding of my queerness or my transness. That's like way in the future, right? And so having these connections with people who love me, but they're not able to see my wholeness doesn't feel like alive a lot of times. A lot of times it's like in between of whatever mortality means for us and then whatever's on the other side. So I've been thinking of, I've just been like, okay, what does it actually mean? And since you asked that question yesterday on the email, I'm just like, what is it doing? Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. It's the work that I have.
I think your last bit there just like really resonated, right? About like to have family, that people who really love you and care about you but don't really see all of you, and like how do you feel alive without that? I think for me, I've been so I basically don't have a relationship with my family. I have cousins who will like message me on WhatsApp once in a while, right? I think for me, I'm learning how to be alive without any of that. And like creating my own support system. Sorry, that like really like hit me. I'm learning to build family around me. And that's kind of keeping me going. And I think that like part of building this group of my part of building the support system, that is people who see all of me and see my full truth, has also created the opportunity for me to like explore and like express my gender as I actually feel it versus like what makes other people comfortable. Yeah, and like it's emotional for me. That's kind of what my experience is right now. What does it feel like? And I also think that while it does make room for me to be like really soft and tender and vulnerable around like the reality of what it means to be queer and like gender fluid, I think I find a lot of strength in that too, because my identity as an asylee is a big part of who I am. My queer identity is also a big part of who I am. My gender identity is also a big part of who I am, and I think that like it gives me a lot of strength too, to be like, I am still alive today, even though I don't have, and then I go down this checklist of like everything that a 32-year-old Indian woman should have, right? And like, even though I don't have all of these things, I'm still alive and I have people around me who love me and who support me. And like, on some days I feel really strong. And also on days that I don't, there are people who are like, it's okay, you can stay in bed. Just make sure you drink water. Or drink. So I think it's been really great for like folks to be able, for me to be able to be around people who will allow me to be a mess and allow me to be resilient and allow me also to not have resilience, but still like consistently love me when my family doesn't.
Can I build on?
Yeah, of course.
Sure. So I guess the question that I had, and I hope maybe people in the audience later on also participate in this because I'm interested in everybody's answers. So when we talk about all of these identities, when we talk about queerness or transness, or in this context, being South Asian and basic people, it's always it feels to me very characterized by suffering. And that makes me sad because when I think about Pride Month and I look at white people celebrating Pride Month, they're so happy, like it comes so easily to them. And I just want to ask us, like, what is it about our identities that make it worthwhile for us? Like, what makes survival worthwhile for us? What makes our transness joyful for us? Like, what makes queerness like worthwhile for us? I guess that's my question, because I don't know if I always have an answer to it, but I think there are so many things, like just from being invited to, I met Masala like 2 years ago. I hadn't really experienced the joy of, performing burlesque to Bollywood music and, performing like my childhood favorite songs and doing them at festivals. I never got to experience that until I got to this community. So I'm kind of curious, I know that's a lot of questions. I guess just what would you not characterize as suffering about our identities, and what would you characterize as, life affirming and life giving? If that makes sense.
Thank you for asking that question.
Yeah.
Do you want to answer that question?
Can you?
So the question is, what part of, oh my gosh.
Your turn.
Why did I start off? Not kidding.
Yeah.
What part of your identity do you celebrate?
Celebrate or take joy in. Yeah.
That is not tied to suffering.
হ্যাঁ, একটা জিনিস হচ্ছে যে এই ট্রান্স, আমি ট্রান্স না, আমি গে না, আমি বাই না, আমি অন্য কিছু, তো এই বিষয়গুলোই অনেকটা এক এক সময় এক এক ভাবে আমার জীবনে এসছে। তো এবং অবশ্যই সেটা অনেক সময় সমাজ সেটা চাপিয়ে দিয়েছে আমাকে, যে তুমি এই সময় এই বয়স থেকে এই বয়স অবধি তুমি গে, এই বয়স থেকে এই বয়স অবধি তো তুমি ট্রান্স, এই বয়স থেকে এই বয়স অবধি তুমি হিজড়া ইত্যাদি। এবং আমার যেটা আনন্দের বিষয় হয় যে আমার ছোটবেলায় আমি যখন বেরিয়ে যাই বাড়ি থেকে, আমার মনে হয়েছিল যে আমি আমার মতো বাঁচবো, এবং তারপরে মনে হয়েছিল যে আমার মতো যারা আছে আমরা একসাথে বাঁচবো। তো এর ভেতর একটা আনন্দ আছে, কারণ যেই বয়সে আমি বেরিয়ে গেছি বাড়ি থেকে সেই বয়সে আমার কাছে অনেক অপশন ছিল, সেই অপশন গুলো আমি যদি আজকে নিতাম হয়তো আমার জীবনটা অন্যরকম হতো। তো এটা একটা অন্য আনন্দ আছে।
So this, I have gone through my life being called a trans, being called a bi, being called a gay, and it was society that assigned me these roles without me wanting to necessarily be that. So when I left home at the age of 14, I thought I would, and pardon my translations, I'm messing up in some places. When I left home at the age of 13, I thought I would live like me. I don't know how to translate that in English.
I feel like we've got a couple of.
আমি আমার মতন বাঁচতে চাই।
I don't know how to translate it.
Yeah, I want to live on my own terms, right? And so there was joy in that feeling that I would be able to live on my own terms. And then I thought that there are others like me, and together we will live on our own terms. And there was a lot of joy in that.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. That totally resonates with me.
I was just gonna say, Shami, like what you just said makes me think about the fact that like our identities aren't tied to suffering at all. It's society's projections and oppression that forces us to suffer. And so that's like the beauty of queerness and transness is like, I'm fucking joyful as fuck about it. I'm real excited all the time, you know? And so it's really sad that queer and trans people are put in this category of like constant suffering because it's real, it's true, and also that's just not our experience and our identities, not for everybody anyways. And so that complexity and like being able to pull out and not impose on ourselves this one dimensionality that people want to impose, right? Like queerness or transness as like, or even in a binary sense of you are queer, you are not, right? Like, I think that and the ways that we, and one of the questions that I had was, how do we in queer and trans communities, how do we fall under like scarcity mindset? How are we competing with each other, not just like outside of the communities? But that's what it makes me think of is, yeah, this is all imposed by systems of oppression, and like I feel really liberated and happy in my queerness.
Yeah. I think, like, to go on what Shumi also said, for me, like, being queer and being out has been, a lot of it has been about taking back my power and like claiming my identity irrespective of like what the consequences have been. And then finding people who love me, all of me, right? So I think that brings me great joy. That the fact that I've had the privilege. I think like, so when I grew up, I didn't have the words. Like I didn't know what gay was. I didn't know what lesbian was. I didn't know what bi or trans was. I didn't even know what gender fluid was. Like I didn't even know what an asylee was, right? And now I'm all these things. And I think that having the privilege to name my identities gives me joy. Like, I think that identities are messy and complex, and like being able to sit in that messiness and complexity of who I am with people who see and affirm and validate all of me has been joyful while it has had like the hard parts of it, right? I think that's okay.
Yeah. Just sharing. তো যখন আমরা বড় হচ্ছিলাম দেখা গেছে যে একটা সময় আমাদেরকে হাতড়াচ্ছিলাম আমাদেরকে কি নাম দেব, আমাদেরকে যদি গে বলা হতো সেটা শুনতে খুব খারাপ লাগতো, আমি তো গে নই, এবং আমাদের ট্রান্স বলা হতো, ট্রান্স শব্দটা আমার বড় হওয়ার সময় জাস্ট উঠছিল। তো আরেকটু পর যখন আমার পার্টনার যে ছিল এবং আমার সাথে যে সম্পর্ক ছিল, সে একটা সময় নিজেকে আইডেন্টিফাই করে ম্যানলি গে হিসেবে এবং দেখা গেছে তো সেটারও একটা অনেক বড় আন্দোলন আছে এই যে নামগুলো ভীষণ মানে খুব আপেক্ষিক, খুব চেঞ্জ, খুব সময়ের সাথে সাথে নিজেরা আইডেন্টিটি অনেক সময় আমি দেখেছি অনেক রকম ভাবে চেঞ্জ হতে নিজেকে।
So growing up, I was trying to find the name, like you was saying. So when people called me gay, I did not like it because I wasn't gay. And a little later, the term trans came about, and my partner identified as a manly gay. So what I wanted to say is that these names and definitions are also relative, and they change over time and over the time of our lives and how we change along with it.
Right. Benji, do you want to answer your own question?
Answer my own question.
Would you like to ask it?
Can you actually? I think that'll actually help me think about it a little bit. What did I ask?
What do you celebrate about?
What do I celebrate?
Yeah. Apart from the suffering. I know the word suffering.
Apart from suffering. So what do I celebrate? I think, so, we talk, you were mentioning, growing up with a lot of harassment and, so, my first name is a Muslim name. So, particularly post 9/11, it was very, very difficult because, kids would just call me terrorists. My teachers would suggest that I was a terrorist, So that was, so kind of my whole narrative growing up was that I'm ugly and that I am unwantable and that I should go back to a place that I didn't really get to know anyway. And I think part of what allows me to take joy is realizing how wrong that was, realizing that, oh wait, no, I'm not ugly. That's just what a bunch of thin white people want to say to make themselves feel better. And then finding I when I was 15 years old, I thought oh, I only want to marry a white person. I never want to date other Desi people because I had internalized that colonial mindset of other Desi people aren't attractive. And I don't know if y'all are looking at yourselves right now, but we're a good looking bunch of folks. So just kind of reaffirming that we're all beautiful people, and taking joy in that realization. It's kind of just like a veil being lifted away, and that feels really affirming and kind of reminds me that I'm a person who belongs in this world and has a place in it. But I always kind of believed that I didn't.
Cool. So should we have a question for you?
তো আমার একটি প্রশ্ন ছিল, সেটা হচ্ছে যে আমরা কিছুদিন আগে একটি আমরা নাচ নিয়ে অনেকটা কাজ করেছিলাম এবং নাট্য ব্যক্তিত্বদের নিয়ে দেখা গেছে যে যারা মেইলি চরিত্রে অভিনয় করছে থিয়েটার বা গ্রাম বাংলার বিভিন্ন মাধ্যমে, তাদেরকে একটা আলাদাভাবে ট্রিট করা হয় এবং অনেক সময় দেখা গেছে যে তাদের যোগ্যতা থাকা সত্ত্বেও তাদের সেই জায়গাটা দেওয়া হচ্ছে না। আমি জানি না ইউএস এর অভিজ্ঞতা, নাচের জগতের অভিজ্ঞতা, মানে সেটা যদি তুমি একটু শেয়ার করতে পারো।
I think everyone should.
Yeah. So what she's asking, that we have worked with dancers and theater actors, and in rural Bengal, when dancers and theater actors who are effeminate, men who are effeminate, they are pushed down. They are looked down upon, and they're not given the rightful place. So that is what, and she wanted Benji to address that.
From the States.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
from if that is the same thing happens in the United States or not.
I would say that there are a lot of similarities, because even though, so for those of you who have any of you been to a burlesque show before? Okay, cool. So
Like the one that you were performing?
Oh yeah, sure. Or ones that so you will see that at burlesque shows, particularly, there is this environment of body positivity, and everybody is welcome. However, I have also railed against that a lot because I find that to be a very disingenuous ideal that's put forth in the burlesque community. Because I think even in a body positive environment, there are still certain types of bodies that are prized the most. And for someone who appears to be male, it is expected that they are like very fit, that they be muscular and manly and kind of like Magic Mike, if you've ever seen it.
Oh my god, I just watched that last night.
Oh yeah, right. And it's very interesting because so when I started learning Burlesque, I studied under somebody who basically looked like a Viking. I don't know how else to put it. So basically, and the way he was teaching dance was these very masculine movements and how to look like a strong man, and that's not what I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn how to move more beautifully and gracefully, and some people would call that feminine. I don't think it's inherently feminine, but as someone who is read as feminine and effeminate, I definitely did not feel like my artistry or work were as welcome in that space. That is something I hope to change, and that's why I do the work that I do. But I would absolutely agree with Shruti that there are definitely similarities between the way those effeminate dancers are treated here in the States and along with how they're treated in rural Bengal as well.
तो भाई वो एक बात है ना, मर्द तो कभी दर्द नहीं होता ये बात है। तो আমরা কলকাতায় দেখেছি জপন ভাদুরী যিনি প্রথম এই যাত্রা দলের সাথে নারী বেশি অভিনয় করেন এবং তার জীবনের কাহিনী আজকে যদি দেখি তার কোনো থাকার জায়গা নেই, তার কোনো সাপোর্ট নেই, তাকে উঠতে দেওয়া হয়নি। তো এই বিষয়টা ওখানেও ভীষণ সত্যি আমাদের জায়গায়।
So she said the first one was in Hindi, which means "Mard ko kabhi dard nahi hota hai." So a man doesn't need to suffer. That's what it translates to roughly. And in Kolkata, there is an actor, Chopul Bhaduri, a theater who would, who would act as a woman.
First female role play করেন তিনি ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলে।
So the first female role was taken up by him. And if we look at that person today, he doesn't have a place to live. That's how badly these actors are oppressed in this patriarchal system.
So I kind of just want to touch on, like, we were talking about, I think you mentioned, let me put this down, I don't know, like my brain is not working, about how we've experienced like oppression because of colonization and also like internalized a lot of those ideas. I don't know, like if you want to talk about your relationship with like decolonizing your gender right now. And like moving that away from.
I do, but I need like 10 seconds to think about it. Yeah.
No kidding. And taking it back and like redefining it through.
Can you say it one more time, like what the question is?
What is your, oh my god, I can't words right now, sorry.
Yes. What is your relationship to decolonizing, specifically decolonizing your gender? Yeah. I can respond to that because I had like a gut reaction to it, which is, I'm not sure if I can relate to the word decolonization, just because I feel ripped by colonization, and at the same time feel like talking about decolonization on this land is really, really intense and hard as somebody who's immigrated here and has privilege, and also recognizing that the history of like people who are brought here against their will, people who have experienced genocide on this land. And a lot of my healing work is trying to grapple really with that, and how gender roles actually take a precedence almost when we're talking about decolonization, because of the same things that we're talking. There's real consequences to the gender binary, right? Yeah. And if you don't fit into that binary, that colonization has sort of spread around the world, there are consequences, and usually that's violence. And so what does healing on this land look like? Is it possible? Right. Is it possible to grapple decolonizing my gender on this land? I'm not sure, right? So I had like such a gut reaction to it. I'm like, oh, like this feels like things that I'm struggling with but don't have words for. And I think tripping myself up over verbality or not having verbality is also a Western construct. We live in this dialogue-heavy world where like you die on your word. And I'm not sure that we need to be processing in that way, right? And I think that's why the things like dance and theater and art is so important to the way that we communicate with each other and the way that we build relationships, because the relationships that we've been disconnected from have been oppressive because of the ways in which they enforce binarism and gender roles. I don't know if that made any sense, but that was my gut reaction to it.
If I can build off of that. So there's two points I want to make based off of what Jonathan was saying, which is that, so the first thing I want to talk about is decolonization, which I think is, so I think a lot of us use decolonization as this kind of shorthand for unlearning toxic Western attitudes, but I think we should be more precise in our language about it, because to me, I think decolonization should mean like actually giving land back to people who it was taken from. And particularly when we are all here on stolen land, either because people were brought here forcefully as slaves, or whether the land was taken from them, as Indigenous people. If we're not talking about giving back that land, I try not to use decolonization in that sense. But sometimes I do accidentally, and that's something I'm working on. So for me, instead I'll talk about unlearning those toxic attitudes and mindsets. And for me, I really, really hate that the language for my identity came from English. And I think, Shumi was talking about this also, is that, these words like gay and trans, these are all words we heard in English. And I hate that I didn't have the language to describe what I was in my own language. And I hated that the only people at the time who were talking about queer rights and were talking about, these blurred lines of gender and where all of that large body of literature was in English, because
they could.
Yeah, because they could.
Yeah, because they could.
Yeah, and that so I call myself non-binary, but I also hate that. My pronouns are they, them, but I hate that it's a word that also means something else. I want a word that just means for me. So growing up, so the only Bangla I know is from when I was 3 years old, because then I moved to the States. So the only things I know how to say in Bangla are like "Khe chotumi," which means like "Did you eat?" or like "Tumi me na chile," right? Like, are you a boy or a girl? Like all very like professor of questions, I guess. So I just so now when people say, are you a boy or a girl? I just say I'm an experience. But it still just feels like this very sassy, quippy personality that has been constructed in part by this like Western individualism and this need to be a special person, when I don't always want to be a special individual. I just want to exist and survive. That's my primary preoccupation, and I feel like language has really become this extra job I need to do on top of just surviving, if that makes sense.
আমার কাছে অভিজ্ঞতাটা একটু অন্যরকম, তার কারণ হচ্ছে আমি দেখেছি যে এই যে ইংরেজি বলা, ইংরেজি বলতে পারা, এই অভিজ্ঞতা নিয়ে যে সমাজে বৈষম্য আছে সেটাই শুধু নয়, আমাদের কমিউনিটির ভেতরেও আছে। তার কারণ কারণ এর সাথে আরেকটা বিষয় আছে যে দলিত শুধু আমাদের শ্রেণীতে, আমাদের কমিউনিটিতে কাজ দিয়ে বিচার হয় না, সেখানে কার কত টাকা আছে, কে কত ধনী সেটা দিয়েও বিচার হয়। হ্যাঁ, তো এক নম্বর হচ্ছে যে দেখা গেছে যে আমাদের মতো মানুষজনদের আজ অব্দি ইন্ডিয়াতে কোনো প্রাইড অর্গানাইজিং কমিটিতে ঢুকতে দেওয়া হবে না। তার কারণ যে প্রথমেই हम लोग काट हो जाएंगे क्योंकि हमें अंग्रेजी नहीं आता, इसलिए। তো এই পুরো সিস্টেমটা যে শুধু যে সমাজের সাথে রিলেটেড এটা নয়, এটা যে পুরো কমিউনিটির সাথেও রিলেটেড। দেখা গেছে যে ক্ষোভের ভেতর ক্ষোভ এবং তার ভেতর ক্ষোভ, এই কমিউনিটিটাকেও কি করে ভাঙা হচ্ছে এই ইংরেজি বলা বা এই যে আধুনিক হওয়া, অতি আধুনিক হওয়া বিষয়টাকে, এটা খুব ভীষণ কমপ্লিকেটেড। হয়তো মানে দুদিন আগে 2 নাম্বার বিষয় হলো যে দুদিন আগে আমার সাথে অন্য একটা ইভেন্টে আলোচনা হচ্ছিল যে এই ইংরেজি বলতে পারার কতটা জরুরি এবং সেটা আদতেও আছে কিনা। সেটা হয়তো অবশ্যই আছে, কিছু কিছু মানুষের কাছে অবশ্যই আছে যারা ভাবেন যে আমরা মানে প্রচুর ফান্ডিং এজেন্সি এরকম আছে যারা ভাবেন যে ইংরেজি পড়া, ইংরেজি বলতে পারা মানুষজনদের সাথে কাজ করা উচিত এবং তার হয়তো কাজটা সহজ হয়। আমার কাছে ভীষণ অদ্ভুত এই পুরো সিচুয়েশনটা, কারণ এটার প্রয়োজনীয়তা আছে কি নেই আমি এটা আমাদের ভাবতে হবে হয়তো আরো।
So my experience is a little different. Being able to speak English is also a differentiating factor within our community. So you know, Dalits are also people who cannot speak English and have less money within our community. And people like us will not be allowed to enter organizations that organize pride events because we cannot speak English. So there is this there is this like a box within a box within a box within a box in our community, and that keeps breaking and dividing our communities one after the other. And of course, there is maybe some importance to speaking English, but there are some funding agencies who will only work with people who can speak English. Maybe it makes their job easier. I do not know.
That sort of makes me wonder, like we have different experiences, different folks coming from different like advocacy, support, healing, transformative work that we're all doing. My question is sort of like, what are challenges in the work that you're doing, and also what feels the hardest about communicating those challenges?
What are the challenges?
What are challenges in the work that you're doing, and what feels hardest about communicating those challenges?
You first.
No, I just have trouble communicating, like in general. I think one of the things that I'm learning about myself is that when my PTSD kicks in, right, like when I start thinking about my experience, like I start forgetting stuff, even if it's like just happened. Right now, I think so. I think that there's like so many ways to answer that question. But right now, one of the things that I'm really struggling with, or that is one of the biggest challenges, is being able to still speak up and educate without losing my temper, without getting triggered, and without getting completely defensive that I'm not actually connecting to somebody else when it comes to immigration stuff, right? And how it affects our communities, how it affects even like conversations that we have, right, with people that I consider to be my family, right? I will still get triggered, I will still get angry, and the words then don't come out. Or even if they do, like for me, making my point becomes, like I struggle with that. I'm still trying to figure out how to have that conversation with folks who, again, like have different experiences of immigration and migrating to this country. Also, I'm a third culture kid, which means that I was born in a different country than India, in my case, where I kind of don't belong to both countries, right? Because I have like an immigrant culture. I don't belong to the Middle East where I was born, but I identify with it. I don't belong to India because, again, like I didn't speak Hindi well enough till we actually moved to India, and I lived there for like 10 years, more than 10 years. So I think for me, like English has been my language of communication, and then for me to learn about my history, about like my ancestral history, learning about what queerness has looked like in South India has been really difficult, but I think I'm really fortunate to have like friends who will tell me, who are from there, who have been born and brought up there, who will like break it down to me and tell it to me in English, and that feels like very, I feel on the outside a lot, right? Because we didn't grow up in that kind of family where we talked about our history or our cultural history, and all I know about like the history that we learned is what we learned in school, right? So being able to kind of, and then I feel like, oh, but I want to belong there, you know, in this little place where there's actually space, like we've actually existed in our cultures, but then I don't belong because like I don't really speak a South Indian language, right? Yeah, I think like that's kind of, if that makes sense.
I'll go next. So I think the first question was, what is the hardest thing about the work that you do, right?
What feels really challenging for you right now, the work that you do?
Sure. So what feels really challenging for me right now with the work that I do is I feel like in order to succeed at all in the artwork that I do requires a lot of complicity in systems that oppress me and other people. So for example, particularly in burlesque, it is not a very diverse at the moment community. The most prized performers are still white, and there's a lot of racism in the burlesque community and anti-blackness in the burlesque community. And those, I always, you know, I'll work with some producer and work on a show with them and perform, and then 3 weeks later find out that they had blackface on their stage at another show. You know, and then so it's like kind of just realizing like, oh, I am still complicit. And participating in this system and in this hierarchy, even when I don't realize it, and negotiating, you know, how much of my values must I sacrifice in order to be able to make any art or express myself is probably the most difficult thing. And your second question was, what's the most challenging about communicating that? So the most challenging thing about communicating it, I think, is it's very hard to explain how much of myself is my own individual personality and how much of myself is a result of trauma. So I think, you know, there will be some times when something wrong happens. It can be anything. I'm slighted by someone and I'll just snap at them. And I don't know if that's a result of, you know, I'm just hungry for the day and I'm just in a bad mood and I'm just a bad person that day, or is it because I'm so used to, you know, being neglected and abandoned and hurt as a child, and that rage and that anger, you know, manifests in snapping at that one person in that moment. And it's really hard for me to be able to make sense of, oh, okay, you know, these hurtful behaviors that manifest in me, you know, are they really who I am as a person, or is it something that's beyond my control? Is it something that's neurological that's come up in me that's kind of built from years and years of enduring that behavior? So communicating that is very hard for people, and asking people to be gentle with me while I navigate that, but also kind of expecting people to meet me halfway and make space for my rage and my anger where I think it's justified is a really difficult thing to do. Thank you.
So I wanted to touch on like a sense of belonging, just like what is belonging in this year? Whether it's, and like again, really broad question. It can be whether belonging in your own body, belonging in your community, belonging in the work that you do. Yeah. Question to the panel: what does belonging mean to you?
Question translate.
Sure. You can also skip the question.
I was just listening to the Bangla translation. I'm thinking, like, how do I explain this to my parents? Yeah. Oh, great. I just don't want to go first. That's the other thing.
Do you want to go first?
নাম্বার ওয়ান, এক নাম্বার হচ্ছে যে সমাজের অংশ, মানে এটা আমি যেই জায়গাতে বড় হয়েছি এটা বুঝতে অনেকটা সময় লেগে যায় আমাদের। তার কারণ হচ্ছে আজকে 2018-তেও কোনো অপশন নেই, কোনো এমপ্লয়মেন্ট, কোনো রিজার্ভেশন অপশন নেই আমাদের ইন্ডিয়াতে, পুরো শুধু ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গল না, পুরো ইন্ডিয়াতে কোনো অপশন নেই। তিনটে মাত্র অপশন আছে, তেকওয়ার, নাচ গান করা এবং হিজড়ে ঘরানা এবং ডেরাতে যুক্ত হয়ে যাওয়া, এর বাইরে কোনো অপশন নেই। তো আমরা সমাজের অংশ, এটা বুঝতে অনেকটা সময় লাগে আমাদের, সেটা বোঝারও অনেকটা কারণ দরকার হয়। এবং আজকের সিচুয়েশনে দাঁড়িয়ে যেখানে গভর্নমেন্ট বলছেন যে এই মানুষগুলোকে স্ক্রিনিং করে দেখা হবে, আমাদের কাছে এরকম বিল আসছে যে স্ক্রিনিং করে দেখা হবে যে এদের নিচে কি আছে, সাইকিয়াট্রিস্ট এবং ডিস্ট্রিক্ট ম্যাজিস্ট্রেট দিয়ে দেখা হবে যে এদের নিচে লিঙ্গ আছে কি না কি আছে, তার উপরে এদের আদার বা ট্রান্সজেন্ডার হিসেবে আইডেন্টি কার্ড বানানো হবে। তো সেই গভর্নমেন্টের দুনিয়াতে থেকে, সেই সাথে থেকে নিজের অস্তিত্ব, নিজের বেঁচে থাকাটা প্রমাণ করাটাই আমাদের কাছে আজকে দায়।
Yeah, so where I come from, it is really hard to understand that we are part of the society and we struggle with that. Today, in 2018, we don't have any livelihood options. The only three things open to us are either doing sex work or dancing, and it's a nuanced form of dancing. I'm not to in a contextual way. I'm saying dancing and going into Hijra Dera, which is a a community, a close community of the Hijras. These are the only three options open to us. So it takes a long time to realize that we are even part of the society. Today in India, the government is saying that all trans people will have to go through a screening committee, which consists of the district magistrate, a psychiatrist who will open your pants and check your genitalia, and based on that, they will assign you an identity, whether you are male, female, or other, or third gender, as it is called. So in such a world run by such a government, just proving oneself is an everyday struggle for us.
Yeah, I'm just taking a second to let that sink in, because that's very. So I think it was just today or last night that the Supreme Court upheld the travel ban against Muslim countries. And so my immigration process or naturalization process as an alien took 15 years. So I came to the States when I was 3, and then got my citizenship when I was 18. It takes that long sometimes. And for me, the sense of belonging I have always associated with a home. And that's obviously a very difficult thing to associate it with when you are, when you are a queer and trans and South Asian person, because I never felt particularly safe at home. So that's just off the bat. But then I was also told America is this more accepting place, and once you are an American, you will be accepted here. And it's kind of a rude awakening to get citizenship and then find out you are not welcome here. Or I've actually to be told it quite a bit sooner than that. But then also growing up in Rhode Island, my brother told me, he said, because you're a gay person, you need to go to a gay-friendly college, so you need to go to a college in Massachusetts. So I applied, since I was a kid, I was telling myself, okay, I have to go to Emerson College, which is the #1 LGBT-friendly college in the country, and it's in downtown Boston, and that's where I went, and I thought, okay, finally I'm going to be around my people in the #1 LGBT-friendly college in the country. I was not I did not feel super welcome or belonging there, because again, I felt like I would only have to, I could only feel like I belonged in my queer identity and not in, my Muslim identity or my immigrant identity or my brown identity, because everyone there was gay, but they were all white. And they all had very problematic politics about things that were not gay rights. So there's that. So I've always just felt like if I wanted to belong anywhere, I had to pick whichever identity I wanted to belong to. If I wanted to belong in my house, I had to belong as a Muslim. If I wanted to belong in school, I had to belong as a queer person. It was only until I met, Masala and, this organization 3 years ago, and got to be on a panel like this, where anyone has ever asked me about all of these identities at the same time. And to ask, hey, what do you think about being all 3 of these things? So I don't want to get sappy. I feel like this is the first place I feel like I belong, but it really is the first place where I feel like all of those identities have been affirmed at the same time, and it's still a really strange feeling.
I don't think that's sappy at all. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Shumi, for sharing what you did. I'm in a really emotional place thinking about belonging, and also that in the work that I feel like I'm a part of and honored to do, there's queerness, transness, disability, sex work is all fringe issues for people, right? And there's a continuous dehumanization that happens when issues that aren't necessarily what people think is mainstream falls under the category of larger umbrellas of oppression. When it doesn't fit that category, it automatically becomes fringe, even in leftist progressive spaces, right? And so there's a constant dehumanization that happens, even in spaces that are supposed to be for us, because we are asked to pick which identity we're going to fight for.
Right.
And a lot of times, the pressure is on, whether it's from family, friends, people that you work with, to sort of not only pick that, but pick the hill you're gonna die on, right? And so there's no wholeness. There's no wholeness. There's no slowness. It's fast-paced. It's reactionary. And I think to be doing transformative work, I want to recognize that we're not fighting the same battles we were 50 years ago. Oppression has changed and is malleable and has sort of grown to become a force, and so does our resistance. Our resistance needs to sort of, it needs to answer to the change. And a lot of what I have sort of been indoctrinated into is that we're going to continue fighting the way that our ancestors did. And while I think that romanticization is really grounded and rooted in us wanting to prove ourselves, I also think no, shit's changed.
Right.
Shit has changed, and I think that to be together and have these conversations means to be really open and vulnerable, at the same time being protective of who's consuming our trauma. Because again, this shit gets recycled and used by people who are actively trying to oppress us.
Right. Yeah.
Right? And so I'm super protective about who I share my experience with. The fact that we're live streaming it right now, it actually took me a second to be do I want this live stream?
Right.
Because I don't want to be up sitting here crying on a panel where a lot of my emotions and heart is being moved because of people who are doing work that I admire and respect and honor and want to cherish. But at the same time, who has privilege and access to this information? And I think we need to be thinking about that. I think we need to be thinking about our trauma history. We need to be making space for being able to talk about it in ways that's not about consumption and not in service of capitalism and white supremacy. Right?
I think So this you just reminded me of this. I think we were both talking about having to fight for one identity or another. I think also we're also pressured to for those identities to be pitted against each other. So for example, when I was at Emerson College and it was the most LGBT friendly college in the country, there was an event there put on by, the organization is called EAGLE, which is Emerson's Alliance for Gays, Lesbians, and Everyone. And the event they put on was they invited an IDF soldier from Israel to come and speak about what it's like being out in the military, in the Israeli military, and like how gay friendly Israel is, and like how awesome that is. And this was just before Don't Ask, Don't Tell had been revealed. And I was expected to go to that event, and I was expected to celebrate it. And really, it was very distorted for me to be expected to go to an event to celebrate my queer identity by somebody who commits an act of genocide against people who look like me, right? So it's that pitting of identities against each other that keeps us down. Avi, I'm super interested to hear your answer to this question, but the question that I have after it that also is kind of how do we all build that solidarity across those lines, and what steps can we take to kind of address those intersectional issues, because I don't really know of many initiatives to battle them that are not on the individual level. Yes, but.
Oh, I have no answer
Sure.
for belonging.
Sure.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Are you sure? Because you have it written down.
That's for the question.
Okay.
I wanted to ask the question to be like,
I got the receipts,
maybe I'll get some answers from y'all and figure it out. No, I think I'm struggling with it. You know, like I don't know where I belong. I don't know who I belong to. I don't know if I belong to myself either. So that's why I said I'll ask this question and see what others say.
Okay.
Maybe something will resonate with me. So thank you for sharing all of that. What was your follow-up question?
I had it written somewhere. So basically, and this can be as broad as you want it, and I'm open to, audience answers on this too if we're at that portion, but basically just how do we build solidarity and do anti-oppression work kind of at the intersections of these identities on a large scale and not on the individual scale, because I think a lot of us, like, our activism is surviving, and that's good, but I'm kind of more interested in, how do we address these larger issues that affect all of us, even if we don't, as individuals, don't experience them, what can we do?
Right.
তো দেখা যাচ্ছে যে এই সলিডারিটি আন্দোলনেরও অনেকগুলো দিক আছে, কারণ আমি বহু দিন ধরে দলিত মুভমেন্টের সাথে যুক্ত আছি ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলে, এবং সেখানেও নানা ভাগ আছে যে যখন একজন রিক্সাওয়ালা লেখক যখন জয়পুর লিটারারি ফেস্টিভ্যালে যাচ্ছেন, তখন তার সম্প্রদায়েরই মানুষ সেটার বিরোধিতা করছে, সেটাও আছে। এবং তার সাথে একটা আমি অনেকগুলো ভাষা আন্দোলনের সাথে যুক্ত, কারণ আমি যেই জায়গাতে বড় হয়েছি কোচবিহার, সেখানে কোচ রাজাদের রাজবংশী ভাষার একটি আন্দোলন আছে, এবং যেই ভাষায় কথা বলতে হলে এখনো অপমানিত হতে হয় এবং হাসাহাসি পাত্র হতে হয়, এবং আমি এই আন্দোলনগুলোর সাথেও যুক্ত। আমরা ট্রাই করছি যে ন্যাশনালি সম্ভব নয়, কারণ আমাদের ভেতরও অনেক ভাগ আছে, কারণ রাস্তায় যদি কোনো ম্যানলি গের সাথে দেখা হয়, আজও আছে সেটা আমার প্রচুর বন্ধু আছে, বাড়িতে এসে আমার সাথে কথা বলবে, কিন্তু রাস্তায় দেখা হলে দেখবে না, তো এটাও আছে। তো এত ভাগ, যে এত বক্স, গে, লেসবিয়ান, হ্যান ত্যান, এত বক্স আছে, তো আমরা ট্রাই করছি যে ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলে একটা সলিডারিটি মুভমেন্ট করার, যেখানে আমরা যারা বঞ্চিত, যেটা নানা দিক থেকে বঞ্চিত মানুষজনরা আছে, ভাষাগতভাবে দলিত আন্দোলন, সবাই একত্রিত হয়ে যদি কিছু করতে পারি, কোনো ফোরাম বা নেটওয়ার্ক, আমরা এখন যেটা ট্রাই করছি, আশা করি সেটা আমরা পারবো।
So these solidarity movements have also many angles. I have been part of Dalit movements in West Bengal for a long time. There is a famous Dalit writer in Bengal.
Manoranjan Bapari.
Manoranjan Bapari is a famous Dalit writer in Bengal, but he used to pull a rickshaw. and was discovered by Mashaka Devi, and that's how he came to fame. But when he is going to the Jaipur Literary Festival, which is a famous festival in India, there is a lot of opposition from within the community. I have also been part of several language movements around the world, fighting for one's language, and one of them is called Koch language. It is where I come from, that part of Bengal. Rajbangshi is a tribe, and their native language is Koch. But speaking Koch is looked down upon, and people laugh when you speak Koch. But I have been part of that movement. So far, it has not been possible to integrate nationally in a movement where there are so many divisions and subdivisions, and there are many gay men who would come to me and visit with me in my house, but will not acknowledge me if they see me on the streets. So it's basically a very divided movement in itself. And in West Bengal, we are trying to see if we can bring all these people together on a platform, and also the people who are fighting for their language, to try and bring all of these people on a single platform. But it's at the state level, not at the national level.
My understanding of solidarity work is so new, and not from a movement level, but even being in my body and trying to figure out what it means to be in solidarity with my body first, to take care of myself first, so that I can be in relationship with people. What was coming up for me, though, in terms of queer and trans liberatory work in the United States, is that I'm seeing a lot of mirroring of the things that you just mentioned, Shumi, around like divisions and subdivisions. And I think like trans people are asked to pour out our stories and experiences because people don't believe us, but at the same time, when we're asked to do that, nobody believes us anyways. And so a lot of solidarity work for me is me asking myself, as a class privileged person, do I need to be doing something that another trans person could be doing? Specifically, does it need to be a South Indian person? Can it be a Black person? Can it be an Indigenous Two-Spirit person? Like asking myself those questions and being willing to have conversations with other privileged friends to ask whether they can also practice that as well. And I think it starts small. And the other part is trying to figure out how to be really conscientious and intentional about who you're building with and who you're asking things from. Like resources are abundant, and that's true of the world, that's true of the earth itself, the land, and that's true of the resources that exist in terms of money. There's an abundance of money in the world, it's just that a few people control it. And so being intentional about who you're asking for resources and what kind of transactional ways of relationship building that kind of creates if that person is expecting things from you. Like there's tons of organizations that are like, we want to give to trans folks, trans people who are like front lines, and I'm not a front lines person, right? Like that's not the work that I do. So, but what does that mean? What are you asking for? What kind of data are you asking for? What kind of surveillance are you doing of those organizations? What criteria do they need to fit in order for you to give them money for them to be deemed worthy? And so these are the types of things that I think about before even going into the conversation of solidarity, because I think it's really hard to have a multi-racial, multi-class, trans-inclusive, trans-centered, femme-centered space when you're not thinking about who you're actually building with. Sponsors are like, what is the face of pride, right? These are the types of things that recreate violence and isn't actually in service of queer and trans liberation.
Yeah. I think like what solidarity has looked like for me has changed over time. Like when I was in India, it was different. My understanding of it was different too, and like my understanding of it now is very different. So it's constantly evolving. I don't know. Like I don't know. I think right now where it is for me, it's very personal, and like I'm still trying to figure out like. I feel like so much of what you said, like just like hit so many different points. Like also like why did we start the Queer Citation Collective, right? What was the reasoning behind that? What's the kind of organizing work that I want to do, or community building work that I want to do? Are there people who want to do it with me, and where they're at different places in their processes, right? Or in their lives, and like working with them, what does that look like, right? And how do we communicate with each other in a way that is gentle and kind to each other also? And then how do we create like bonds with each other where we can trust each other? Has been something that I'm still like in the process of learning. Just basically being, I feel like, for example, even within the Queer Citation Collective, I think one of the things that I've tried to be really intentional about has been when we talk about queer citation spaces, it's so North Indian, cisgender, male driven, like that's it. That's predominant in queer citation spaces. But then there are also folks who are, for example, an asylum seeker, right? There are folks who are Nepali, there are folks who are South Indian from different parts of South India, right? There are folks who have an understanding of like the caste system. There are people who don't. There are people who think that, and I was one of these people, right? Like that the caste system is the same all across India. No, but then we had like folks educate me, right? And I think that for me, it's more about like creating this space within which we can have those conversations with each other to learn to educate each other, right? If we so choose to do, to learn from each other, and to also figure it out sometimes with each other, because like sometimes we don't all have the answers that we're looking for. Yeah, and eat food. A lot of food. But I think that for me right now, solidarity looks like creating a space, creating spaces within which every person who comes into that space feels like they can bring their full identity, feels like they can advocate for themselves when like we don't do enough to advocate for the other person. And I think like that's something that I want to do personally. In terms of like that's what solidarity looks like, and also be able to like talk about like, hey, you're not seeing this part of me, and I wish you did, but doing it in a way that's not like doesn't come across as like attacking the other person. For not seeing
आपके साथ मैं थोड़ा बात जोड़ती हूँ तो এখন কথা হচ্ছে যে সলিডারিটি আন্দোলন নিয়ে দেখা গেছে যে অনেক সময় ওমেন্স মুভমেন্টের সাথে ট্রান্স ওমেন আন্দোলনটার একটা সংযোগ করার চেষ্টা হচ্ছে কিন্তু সেখানেও যে কত বাধা তার কারণ যে সবথেকে মূল যেটা বাধা আগে আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি যে যারা ফেমিনিস্ট আন্দোলনের সাথে যুক্ত আছেন তারা বলছেন যে তথাকথিত ট্রান্স ওমেনরা অতি মেলি হবার জন্য পুরুষতান্ত্রিকতার যে দিকগুলো আছে শাখা সিঁদুর मैं तो इतना साजती हूँ तो मुझे भी नहीं लेना है उसका पार्ट तो ये আবার দেখা যাচ্ছে যে অনেক সময় যে যারা ছেলে নয় যারা ছেলের মতো থাকে বা যাদের ছোট চুল তাদেরকেও সেই আন্দোলনের পার্ট করা হচ্ছে না বলা হচ্ছে যে এ তো ছেলে এ তো শাড়ি পরে না বা এ তো ট্রান্স ওমেন নয় কোট আনকোট আমাদের চোখে তো কোথাও গিয়ে যে নিজের সত্তা যে আমি আমার মতন এবং আমার যদি আজকে ইচ্ছে না করে শাড়ি পরতে আমার যদি ইচ্ছে না করে বেস্ট লাগাতে আমি লাগাবো না তো এই নিজের সত্তাটাকে কোথাও মানা হবে না যেটা হতে পারে সবথেকে বড় কারণ আমরা শরীরে মেয়ে না এটাও একটা কারণ হতে পারে তার কারণ দেখা গেছে যে ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলে বেশিরভাগ নারী আন্দোলন আন্দোলনে দেখা মহিলারা এগিয়ে আছেন, শ্রমিক মহিলারা যখন এগিয়ে আছেন, তাদের হাতে কি শাখা সিঁদুর নেই? অবশ্যই আছে, কিন্তু তাদের কোথাও অ্যাকসেপ্টেন্সটা বাড়তি আমাদের থেকে। তো সেখানে দেখা যাচ্ছে যে কোথাও কি সংযোগটা হয়ে হচ্ছে না আমাদের ভেতরে।
So there has been an effort to connect the trans movement to the feminist movement. But we as trans women are not being accepted in the feminist movement because they are saying that the trans women are too feminine, that they are wearing I don't know how to say shaka shidur. Like in Bengal, women who marry, they wear Hindu women wear a red and a white bangle. So the trans women, when they wear that, the feminist movement saying these people are too feminine and they are part of the same patriarchy that we are trying to fight. So you are not welcome in this movement. On the other hand, those trans women who outwardly look like men, have short hair, don't wear saris, are also not welcome because they are men. So there is no space where I can just express my own self. That if I don't feel like wearing a sari one day, it's okay. If I don't feel like wearing the breasts one day, it's okay. I can be me and be accepted. That's not happening in these in an effort to bring solidarity between these movements. So when in feminist, although in the feminist movement, people who are put on the front line are actually working women who wear shaka shidur, those things in their hands. But there is no problem them doing that. It's only when trans women are wearing shaka and pola that's so somehow these movements are not coming together. It's been very difficult for these movements to come together.
Yeah, I asked that question because I asked the question what solidarity means because I'm not sure that I know. I think maybe I'm very cynical about what solidarity means. Particularly because, when, a lot of people, who consider themselves allies to me will come up to me and they say like, oh, I stand in solidarity with you. And what does that mean? Like, are you going to give me money? Like,
And then they're like, yes, as a good ally should.
Yeah, right. Right. So it's like, there's this like, I don't know how to like negotiate like what it means to be an ally to someone, and I think what we need to recognize is that alliances require consent, and that you can't call yourself an ally and say I'm an ally to you. The person who you are being an ally to has to consent and say, okay, you are my ally. And I think that relationship is kind of being imposed from the opposite direction. So that's why it's very hard for me to feel like I have allies, because I'm inherently distrustful of people who consider themselves my allies. But then on the other hand, I'm very cynical because I've had a lot of difficulty building solidarity movements with other South Asian people, because in our South Asian community we have a lot of anti-blackness. So we talk about the racism that we experience, and people call us terrorists and talk about our bad skin. But then in the summer when my skin darkens, my family say, "Ha, you look like a black person," and like that's really hilarious to all of them. So it's really important for us to kind of when I ask myself, well, okay, how the heck am I supposed to build this like co-solidarity movement and show up for people who have every right to be inherently distrusting of us, when I feel that from my oppressors too? So it's just this kind of like endless chain of predation on each other that's really made me super jaded about it. And I don't want to end on that note, but I don't know what the answer is to changing that. Yeah, I think we just gotta keep talking about it.
So we've got about 10 minutes more, and I wanted to open it up to interaction with the audience. If y'all have, go for it.
So firstly, thank you. I grew up in India, Bombay, Benji Bombay, and I'm Muslim, and I'm a mother, and so just don't feel scared for finding your identity. We're all struggling. Everybody in this room. What am I? I'm American. I'm Muslim. I'm a woman. I'm a mother. I'm a daughter. This is everywhere. So you guys aren't alone. So don't let that stress you out. But thank you very much, because I remember the first time I heard the Q, LGBT, I knew, but I didn't know about the Q. It was 2 years ago when the Florida shooting happened, and I'm from a small suburban community of Sharon. I used to live there before I got divorced with my 2 children, and I made a poster saying Muslims for LGBT, and I didn't put the Q. And my son, who was 16 at the time, was very indignant and said, "You're missing a Q." I'm like, "I don't even know what that is." So he's like, "Put it on." And then we got into this whole conversation about what LGBTQ really means, and are Muslims really for that? And I had to step back and say, well, mommy is, but even he asked me a question which really threw me back, and he said, but it's against God, it's against Islam, and I was like, yeah, and then he asked me, would you be okay if I was gay? And I was just like, fuck no. And that was really like a pause for me. And the answer I had was, life. It's not because he asked me, would you love me any less? And I said, I wouldn't love you any less, but life will be so much more difficult for you. I just don't want that life for you. That's why I don't want you to be gay. And that was 2 years ago. And so I had to kind of grow through that moment. And I, in my head, always felt Indians aren't queer. Muslims aren't. We're Desis. We don't do this. And so thank you for enlightening me. And so when I read about this, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to come see this show. And so thank you. And I probably have buy tickets to your lecture.
Oh, thank you.
So that would be really something. But I want to kind of just I have to leave because my train's going to leave. Sure. But I want to kind of think about that idea of decolonization and that whole white man, the hatred we have for the white man. But I think it's just so wrong, because I think it is the white man that has finally given us the language, firstly, to talk about this. And also just the idea of human rights, because hate is denied as much as we want, but our culture traditionally is so anti-human rights, it's so anti-equality. I mean, even if people of the same gender, no gender issues, a man, a normal heterosexual man, just because he's not a Brahmin or he's lower because he's lower caste. So we inherently owe the white man the colonization, or whatever you want to call it, because it gave us a platform that brings us here right now. It's because of the white man. So,
Can I just stop you right there?
A little. I mean, when I say white man, I'm generalizing a little bit.
I just want to stop you right there, because a lot of what you're saying is distressing, like super distressing, right? Yeah. It's really distressing to lift up oppression.
But in the sense that,
just hear them out, hear them out.
Yeah.
I'm only stopping you because I felt like you were going into sort of like maybe a process of trying to explain why maybe the panelists or other people in this room might have hate for white men or whiteness in general. And I think my response and the response that I have in my body right now is to say that I'm never going to celebrate oppression as a reason why I found myself.
Right.
Right? And so I think to be conscientious of hate as a symptom of oppression versus hate because you want the demise of somebody is different. And I feel really, really validated and okay hating whiteness as a construct and hating white supremacy for what it's done to the world.
So that's what I meant. I meant maybe I'm not saying it the right way. I meant the idea of the Western idea, I guess. There's a reason Afia has taken an asylum in America. And, because there's something that the Western world has given us in terms of equality, a sense of equality that we're still lagging behind in South Asia. That's just there's just this. I would not imagine having this conversation in Bombay, which is a very liberal society, but still there would be difficulty. But Brahmin Boston allows us.
All right, hold on. Let's just hold on for a second, all right? Let's be conscious of the fact that we have 6 minutes more. I want to hear from other folks too, right? And I think that with everything that was just said, right, a lot of us here have feelings about responding to it. So you want to say something? Be really
Yeah,
quick. Is there somebody in the corner who wants to ask a question? And somebody else who
I'm
wants
just
to say
gonna,
something?
yeah, I'm just gonna keep this very brief. I also used to have that mindset about a lot of things, and part of my decolonization and unlearning was getting rid of that mindset. So all I would say is to really examine the long-term, like not just the last century, but the long-term history of Muslim culture and the long-term history of Desi culture, because there is plenty of queerness and trans representation in our millennia-long history that has changed and been hidden over the last century. And
just from a historical standpoint, accuracy, the concept of homosexuality and queerness were brought to India through the Victorian age by the British. And when you go back to the Vedas and the Aryan age, actually homosexuality was very much accepted and part of the culture. So I just want to clarify from a historic standpoint, this is the point of accuracy. My question is, like when you're going out there and you're talking to people who might be slightly ignorant, how do you kind of proactively sensitize them about your identity without keeping the sexual component in front and center while explaining about your gender identity?
I'm bisexual. I think it's very hard to like not do that. Because like the minute I say I'm bisexual, everyone in the room right now is like, oh, you have sex. It's right there, right?
So let me give you some context.
Also, like I think
in a workplace, I mean, you don't want to keep the sexual components always front and center. You also want to.
Why not? I mean, we're so. I feel like okay, not we, right? Me in the family that I grew up in. Nobody wants to talk about sex. They don't want to talk about it because it's something that's seen as taboo. That's like, oh no, don't talk about that. Talk about the rest of your queerness. No, you know what? I'm gonna talk about sex. I'm gonna talk about healthy sex. I'm gonna talk about consensual sex. I'm gonna talk about like unhealthy sex, right? And I'm also gonna talk about sexual identities that's not heterosexual. And it's okay, like in my opinion, I think it's completely okay to like have sex front and center. Pun intended everywhere. I know that's my question, but like if I'm like not answering your question.
I think we can just like one answer for each question, at least for time, so if you want to.
Sure.
Yeah, so my name is Aisha, my pronouns are she, her. I'm the co-founder of Camille for Muslims for Progressive Values, who co-sponsored this event. And I guess my question is how our organization can kind of fit into a lot of the other LGBTQ South Asian groups. I'm not South Asian. I'm a white passing. I'm half white, half African. There are a lot of ways in which I can relate to things instead of and also a lot of ways in which I cannot relate, and how our organization cannot relate. So I guess like, how do you see us in this solidarity framework? Like, I have some ideas, but I also want to hear yours, and also just like a blood.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I think that Kandil and I have talked about like let's catch up offline and like connect with each other and talk about how we can work together.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just want to.
She wants that. She has
Thank you for this discussion. It was very empowering and needed. This question of identity, thing is that each one of us has many identities. I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, so these are all identities. I grew up in England, I faced racism, and all this is there. And so this system denies your identities. So it's done to all of us. And the violence is there for all of us, because this othering, you're the other, becomes really a focus of how you are belittled, you have no history, you have nothing, as you said, you're not good looking. Like all of that then, is so internalized. And that's, you have the hardest part, but only folk also, who are not bisexual, also have the same. So I think the unity, somehow we have to really grasp how we can unify and connect on, for example, that the right to our identities that it's a human aspect, and we are all human regardless of our sexual orientation. So this has to, because we are human, and we can have whichever way we want sex.
I think in order to get to that place, we need to be comfortable in our differences.
Yeah.
We need to be really comfortable. We need to want to grapple, desire to grapple with it. And I think a lot about how we're supposed to be able to talk to each other through those lines, through those different experiences. And a lot of it comes down to, are you willing to listen and hear me out, and do you believe me? And will you believe me? Right? And as somebody who's a trauma survivor, I think a lot of that rests in, do you believe me? Also, who is doing the othering? And through what arms does othering actually act? So like white supremacy acts through colonialism and imperialism, right? And it works through profit, through people over profit. And so thinking about who is actually doing the othering, because a lot of times we think it's each other, it's people who are to your left and right, but it's actually white supremacy acting through that person, right? And so those are the two responses that I have to like, how can we unify, and we need to unify, is we need to get really comfortable with our differences, and we need to realize that the othering is coming from larger systems and not each other.
Just 1 minute, I don't have a question, but I have this survey, I just need to distribute it because that's an obligation to offend. That's it.
So Saket is gonna hand out like a little survey
So
for
we
you for all the fill
that
out.
were actually given microgrant that was given to us by Fenway, by Tanika. Part of that obligation is to fill out a survey, just a front and back, it's just very quick. Thank you. Anyway.
All right, Shishti, go ahead.
I guess, it wasn't a question, but maybe
make the comment. It's
the person who just left,
right,
maybe needed to hear the comment, but hopefully the person will hear it. Like, it's too.
We will communicate to her.
Also, there's a video, so like.
No, we're gonna see her tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. So I was gonna say that often, I think, the person that said they were from Bombay, and I think often India really, in the larger diaspora, like really represents South Asia. And so I was just pulling up like, just to confirm, but just like, I'm from Nepal, and like some of the laws in Nepal for like LGBTQI plus folks are like some of the most progressive in the world, and that's in South Asia. And so there's other countries as well in South Asia, so really thinking about, I guess, like, what do we mean when we say South Asia?
Yeah.
Often. Yeah, and that's my own thing.
You're so awesome. Amrita, you had it.
Yeah, actually also interesting that you mentioned the laws in Nepal. Right. Because my question was going to be about legislative action. I know that in India, recently there was a trans bill, quote unquote, bill that was proposed that was very problematic. And maybe Shuni can comment on what legislative action in India will really help, and also in the US. I know that in Massachusetts there's this ballot question that's coming up in November. That's kind of problematic as well. But really, my question is: do you think there's any legislative action that can really help kind of propel towards social equality? And if so, where do we need to go in terms of that? Yes. Right. So, very big question.
So whilst I'm not translating, I'm just gonna put this out there that in November, not in November, I think in September, October, we're gonna do a workshop on like trans allies, because I really think that even though this is a huge issue, I really think that we don't talk about this in the South Asian community here, right? Like within the queer community, we know what it is, we know what to do, we know like the language around it, but the basic like trans 101 knowledge doesn't exist in like the greater South Asian community here in Massachusetts. And I think we're going to be doing, well, I know that we're planning on doing a few trainings and workshops for folks to, one, get familiar with the language, get comfortable with how to be trans inclusive in the conversations that you're having, or even for yourself. And then how does this current bill that's coming up in November, like, how does it impact us? How can you show up? And like, what are the things that you can do? It's going to be like an action and a training together. So follow the Queer South Asian Collective page, and like there'll be more information on that there. So that's what I can say for here. But we're back.
আমাদের কাছে একটি বিল আসছে যে বিলটার ড্রাফট আমরা দেখতে পারি অক্টোবর কি সেপ্টেম্বর নাগাদ, যেটা মিনিস্ট্রির সাইডে আমরা দেখতে পারি। সেখানে বলা হয়েছে যে এই বিল যেটা আসছে, সরকার আনছে, এই বিল ট্রান্সজেন্ডার মানুষদের প্রোটেকশন দেবে এবং উন্নতি করবে। কিন্তু আমরা সেই বিল নিয়ে যখন লয়ারের কাছে যাচ্ছি, আমরা দেখতে পাচ্ছি বিলটা সম্পূর্ণ ভুলে ভরা একটি বিল। সেই বিলে সব থেকে মেইন অনেকগুলো পয়েন্ট আছে এবং তার থেকে সব থেকে সমস্যাজনক হলো সেখানে ট্রান্সজেন্ডারের যে ডেফিনেশন ঠিক করা হয়েছে সেটা সম্পূর্ণ ভুল। সেখানে বলা হয়েছে ছেলেও না এবং মেয়েও না, কম্বিনেশন অফ মেল ফিমেল, সেই তার আইডেন্টিটি একমাত্র হতে পারবে ট্রান্স আইডেন্টিটিতে, তাকে ফেলা হবে। এবং এর বাইরে আছে যে স্ক্রিনিং কমিটি, ডিস্ট্রিক্ট ওয়াইজ স্ক্রিনিং কমিটি হবে, যেখানে ডিস্ট্রিক্ট ম্যাজিস্ট্রেট থাকবেন এবং লয়ার থাকবেন, সাইকিয়াট্রিস্ট থাকবেন। সেখানে দেখা হবে কি ট্রান্স কে নয়। এবং এর বাইরে আরো অনেকগুলো দিক আছে যে পুরো হিস্ট্রি ঘরানা যেটা এত যুগ ধরে চলে আসছে, সেটাকে বলা হচ্ছে লিগালি অপরাধ। কিন্তু প্রশ্নটা হচ্ছে যে যদি লিগালি অপরাধ হয়, তাহলে এই বিলে কোথাও পরিষ্কারভাবে রিজার্ভেশনের কথা উল্লেখ নেই আমাদের। এই বিল নিয়ে ন্যাশনালি প্রোটেস্ট অনেকগুলো হয়েছে এবং দিল্লিতেও হয়েছে, ডিস্ট্রিক্ট ওয়াইজ হয়েছে, স্টেট ওয়াইজ হয়েছে। কিন্তু খুব দুঃখজনকভাবে ন্যাশনালি বহু ট্রান্স অ্যাক্টিভিস্ট এই বিলের পক্ষে, সরকারের পক্ষে, এবং তারা মিডিয়ার কাছে নানা রকম বিবৃতি দিচ্ছেন বা দিয়ে আসছেন। এই মুহূর্তে যেটা বিলের সিচুয়েশন, শীতকালীন অধিবেশনে বিল পাস করা হয়নি। আমাদের কাছে কোনো তথ্য নেই আগামী অধিবেশনে এই বিলটা পাস হবে কিনা। আমরা চেষ্টা করছি যে আদার পলিটিক্যাল এমপিদের সাথে মিট করে আসলে বিলটা সমস্যা কোথায় সেই বিষয়ে বোঝানোর। আশা করা যায় এই এরকম একটা সম্পূর্ণ ভয়ানক একটি ভীষণ বাজে বিল এবং খতরনাক বিল আমাদের কাছে আসবে না। বিলটা সংশোধন করা হবে। ন্যাশনালি যারা ইন্ডিয়ার ট্রান্স অ্যাক্টিভিস্ট হিসেবে পরিচিত মুখ, যারা বহুবার ইউএস আসেন, তারা বিলটাকে সঠিক বিলটা বুঝবে। এটাই।
There is a bill in the Indian Parliament, the draft of which will be so there was one 2016 trans bill that had come out, and then now this is the next version of that, and we'll come to see the draft in October, November time frame. The bill supposedly is to protect and for the development of trans people in India, but it is filled with huge mistakes. And the most problematic is the definition of trans itself. Excuse me. It says a trans person is a combination of male and female. And then, as I said, there is a screening committee of district magistrate, psychiatrist, lawyer to tell you whether you are a trans or not. Another big problem in the bill is the Hijra Gharana, the community, the traditional community of Hijra. They are criminalizing it, they are saying it is illegal to have a Hijra Gharana, but nowhere in the bill it says what will be the livelihood of these people, or neither does it talk about affirmative action for the Hijra community. Many trans activists are actually supporting this bill also. This bill has not passed in the winter parliament, and we are meeting with MPs, the member of parliaments, and trying to explain them the big loopholes that are there. This we think is a very dangerous bill, and the hope is that we will be able to stop this or revise this.
Thank you. All right, just before, I know that we've gone 10 minutes over time, but I wanted to just, sure, one second. We're just going to close out with talking about what are the projects we're working on, right? And do a quick plug on the work that we're doing right now after your question or comment.
I just have a comment. I think these exchanges are very important. See, I was trained as a philosopher, so I'm interested in ideas, concepts. So it's a reflection of reality has actually gone far beyond than existing relationships. To me, it seems like family around bloodline has become obsolete. Marriage around this binary relation, they have also, become obsolete. We don't have language to talk about this new reality that has emerged. I mean, you can see last 300 years of experience. During Enlightenment era in Europe, they had to completely construct new language for the new relations that came into being. Same way, feminist movement actually created a famous book called The New World. And I think with these exchanges, we will really need to construct new concepts and new ideas and new language that is in sync with reality that exists. So I think these exchanges are very, very important. And to me, it's a harbinger of a new society that is going to emerge, in which rights of all humans and nature are going to be affirmed, because we don't even talk about rights of nature at the moment, which are very, very important, and that means the rights of all humans, irrespective of dint of their business.
It's very optimistic. I'm personally hoping I survive long enough to see that. Yeah.
I do want to talk about stuff that's going on. Because also she has a project that she wants to talk about. So do you want to?
I can start. Yeah, so I collaborate with a collaborator friend, somebody who's a thought partner on a project called Cultivate, Queer Healing Lab. And it's a space for queer and trans folks of color and queer and trans people to be together with our bodies. We do embodiment practices. What that basically means is we're combining modalities, including what people know as yoga asana, with other types of movement work. And really just create a space for people to bring in whatever they need to bring in and let go of whatever they need to let go of. And we have classes starting up again Fridays and Sundays. So if you want more information about that, if you have queer and trans people in your life who feel like could benefit from that space, definitely come up to me. I don't have any materials to pass out, but I'm happy to show you our Facebook page or connect you to our email list, whatever feels useful. And the other sort of work that I do with the Asian American Resource Workshop is trying to build out a specific Asian Pacific Islander, Asian American contingent of queer and trans people who are working to sort of support each other and do more cultural organizing, transformative art work together. And through that, there's a group called Lodex, which is a drag group. People who are experimenting with drag, who have non-binary and other genders as well. So those are three projects that are sort of ongoing. In terms of support, right now the support that we're seeking for all three of those projects is social media boosting. If there's events that you see posted on the Asian American Resource Workshop page, definitely boost it to your networks. And then the other part is financial resources. So these spaces are community run and community based. And so to be able to pay our facilitators, pay people for the artwork, we're always looking for funding and money. So if you're a person that's connected to money, definitely come talk to me.
So we've got some, we're currently in like the fundraising stage for QSAC. We're trying to get some of our amazing, new, young, powerful leaders to go to a conference that's happening in July, the end of July, in San Francisco, for which we're selling stickers here today. If you want, and they're really cute ones that were made by Matt, who's sitting over there, who's an amazing artist. So if you have like a couple of dollars, right, to send our way, pick up a poster or two, a sticker or two. If you want more, we have more.
Not all of them are here, so if you want more messages.
My fault, I'm sorry. Also, if you just want to send us some money, we have a PayPal account, which is paypal.me/QSAC, QSAC. So give us all the money. That's just like what I wanted to plug in. It's between the two of you, like y'all decide.
Okay, so this is not nearly as serious or has the gravity of everything we've been talking about, but if you all want to see me get naked.
I feel like
well, it is a way to support. It is a way to support someone very underrepresented in performance. Yeah, you can find any of my performances and upcoming projects through Benji Bombay on Facebook. But in all seriousness, if you're interested in learning about burlesque or how to perform yourself, I just taught a very successful class series that culminated in a showcase, and we're hoping to do it again. So all bodies, all genders, all races, and ability levels are open to it. So please get in contact with me through Facebook or after this event, and I will be happy to teach you or anyone you know. And I also just like making it.
Awesome.
তো দেখা গেছে যে ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলে এডুকেশন লেভেল ভীষণ লো এই কমিউনিটির জন্য, এবং মানে আমরা যেটা করছি যে কি করে এডুকেশন স্কুলে কলেজে একটি উন্নত ব্যবস্থা যায় করা এদের জন্য। তো আমরা স্কুলে 9 থেকে শুরু করে 12 অবধি এবং কলেজের স্টুডেন্টস ইউনিয়নের সাথে রেগুলার ওয়ার্কশপ এবং ফোকাস গ্রুপ ডিসকাশন করছি, সাইকিয়াট্রিস্টকে নিয়ে এসে আলোচনা করছি ওয়ার্কশপে, যাতে একটা মনোরম পরিবেশ হয়, যাতে স্কুলে যায়। কারণ দেখা গেছে যে বেশিরভাগ আমাদের সাথী যারা আছে তারা মেবি হবার জন্য ক্লাস 5-6 ড্রপ আউট হয়ে যাচ্ছে, কারণ এডুকেশনটা আগে যাচ্ছে না, কারণ সেই কারণে জব অপশন গুলো সব বন্ধ হয়ে যাচ্ছে। 1 নাম্বার। 2 নাম্বার, আমরা যেটা করছি যে ডিফারেন্ট লাইভলিহুড কি হতে পারে, যেই আমাদের বন্ধু যারা সেক্স ওয়ার্কে নেই, যারা হিজড়ে ঘরানাতে নেই, তাদের কি হতে পারে, তো তারা কিভাবে জীবনকে এগিয়ে নিয়ে যাবে। আমরা ম্যাচ মেকিং এর ওয়ার্কশপ দিচ্ছি, কারণ কোচবিহারে ভীষণ প্রচলিত শীতল পাটি ইন্টারন্যাশনাল মার্কেট, সেখান থেকে বিদেশেও প্রচুর শীতল পাটির হ্যান্ডব্যাগ, মাদুর বিদেশেও আছে এবং ইন্ডিয়াতে প্রচুর জায়গাতে যায়। তো আমরা তার ওয়ার্কশপ দিচ্ছি এবং বিউটিশিয়ানের কাজ শেখাচ্ছি, তারা যেটা চায়। তো পরবর্তীতে আমাদের হোম ডেলিভারি ইত্যাদি এইসবের প্ল্যান আছে, এবং আমরা 2012 থেকে একটি শেল্টার চালাই। তার কারণ দেখা গেছে যে অনেক সময় এই মানুষগুলো বাড়ি থেকে বেরিয়ে আসে, আমাদের কাছে খুব মানে লং টাইম শেল্টার করা সম্ভব না, আমাদের শর্ট টাইম আমরা 7 দিন বা 10 দিন সেখানে রাখতে পারি। আমরা তার ভেতর চেষ্টা করি বাড়ির সাথে কথা বলতে, সমস্যা সাইকিয়াট্রিস্ট নিয়ে গিয়ে কোনো লিগাল সাপোর্ট দরকার হলে আমরা, কারণ আমাদের মনে হয়েছে যে বাড়ি থেকে বেরিয়ে আসাটাই একমাত্র সলিউশন নয়, কারণ বাড়িতে থেকে যুদ্ধটাও অনেক বড় যুদ্ধ। এর সাথে আমরা একটি ডকুমেন্টারি প্ল্যান করছি, আমি এবং আমার বন্ধু সুদর্শনা ফিল্ম মেকার সুদর্শনা চক্রবর্তী ফ্রম কলকাতা। কারণ অনেক ডকুমেন্টারি হয়েছে, ইন্ডিয়াতে হয়েছে, ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গলে হয়েছে, কিন্তু দেখতে হবে যে ডকুমেন্টারি গুলো কোথায় হচ্ছে। ডকুমেন্টারি গুলো সবগুলোই মেট্রো সিটি বেসড, কারণ গ্রামের ভিলেজ এলাকার যে কমিউনিটির মানুষজন আছে তারা কিভাবে বড় হয়ে উঠছে, তারা কিভাবে একটা ডিফারেন্ট লাইভলিহুডের পথ বেছে নিচ্ছে, গ্রামের একটা সংস্কৃতি, মনসা যাত্রাপালা, বিশ্বহরি পালা ইত্যাদি নিয়ে আমরা সবকিছু একত্রিত করে আমরা একটি ডকুমেন্টারি প্ল্যান করছি এবং আমি পার্সোনালি আপনাদের কাছে হেল্প চাইবো। আমাদের ফান্ড রাইজিং পেজ আছে, পোস্ট কার্ড, যেটা আমরা ইউএসএ কিছু ফান্ড রাইজ করছি। আপনারা যদি আমাদের এই কাজটা একটু সাহায্য করেন আমাদের ভীষণ সুবিধে হবে, কারণ আমরা আগস্টে কাজ আরম্ভ করছি। ফান্ডিং এর জন্য আমাদের কাজটা এখন আটকে আছে এবং আপনাদের সাহায্যে হয়তো আমাদের স্বপ্নটা আরেকটু পূর্ণ হবে।
So I'm going to talk a little bit about our work. The level of education in our community is very, very low. So we as a group, we work with schools and colleges to make space for trans people to go to these institutions. Usually trans people drop out in the 4th or 5th grade because they are harassed and tortured and all that, and that additionally closes all livelihood options for them. Those of us who are not in sex work or not part of the Hijra Gharana, we try to come up with ways that they can make a livelihood. Also, part of that is training people on mat making. Shital patti, it's a very particular kind of mat that grows, a plant that grows in that part of Bengal, and you make mats and different things from that. So we train our people on that. We have been running a shelter since 2012 because a lot of trans people have to leave home. We are not able to give long-term shelter, but we are able to give 7 to 10 days of shelter to those people. We additionally have counseling support with psychiatrists and also legal support. And because sometimes leaving home is not always the only option. Sometimes you can fight and stay at home, stay on at home. It needs a lot of courage and support. So we do that. And lastly, me and my friend Sudarshana, who's a filmmaker, are planning to make a documentary on trans people. There have many documentaries have been made, but most of them are very metro urban centric and do not the voice of the rural people does not figure in it. And it's very unique how trans people in rural India make a livelihood. There is different kind of festivals, Monosha Puja, and where they dress up as Shiv, Parvati, and different. That's a very unique and cultural way of earning a livelihood, which is not found in urban settings. So we want to capture all this in the documentary, and I'm appealing for some support from you all. We have made a fundraising page for people in the US to donate, and these are the postcards. You can find the link there. So your support will be greatly appreciated.
So I just wanted to say thank you to all of y'all for coming out. Yeah.
We've put the link for those for the fundraising on the event page for folks who might not have come if they wanted to come.
Sure, very good.
I'll post that up there.
I just want to make a comment. I came in late and I heard one of the comment I read. There are no gender neutral classroom. I did not check that, but if that's the case, I'm so sorry and apologetic because
There are, right?
there are.
Yeah, there are.
So anyone who was given that comment, I did not read the name. This is just you couldn't find that.
Yeah, I apologize about that. I actually spent 20 minutes searching for gender-neutral classrooms, which is kind of crazy because you shouldn't have to search for 20 minutes to find a gender-neutral bathroom. In MIT, they have a list of all the rooms that are gender-neutral bathrooms, but they're not. Clearly, it's not easy to find. So.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Well, I mean, it's just my app. Down. Okay, sure. Yeah, that too.
Okay, phone. Can you take a picture of it?
Yeah.
Also, thank you for doing that.
Doing all of that.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Hi.
Okay.